Welcome to the 18th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our NitWits panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Jacob Cowker of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest nitwit each week. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Reed and Cellini, Doctors Reed and Cellini provide orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona, just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By The Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Welcome once again inside the NitWits alongside Neil Riddell, Mark Brennan, Mike Irwin. I'm Jacob Cowker. Let's dive right into the big news out of Nittany Nation. John Donovan is out as Penn State's offensive coordinator. James Franklin fired Donovan on Sunday. Penn State's offense finished 101st in scoring this season, 125th out of 127 teams in third down conversions. Not very good across the board. Kind of the writing on the wall, I guess, as to why Donovan's gone.
Yeah, I don't know that they announced that he was fired today. My guess is that this has been building for a few weeks, and at least James has known which direction he's going to go. Because, the offense played pretty well yesterday. So I don't think it was like they came out of this game and decided based on that they're going to fire him. I think that this has been in the works for the last few weeks. And, really interesting to see which direction now that they're going to go. And, because Donovan had been with him 5 years.
Well, I think it's another example of how different things are than they used to be. This is, when was the last time Joe fired anybody? Think about that.
He prided himself on like one or two coaches.
Right, but this is kind of the way things are. We saw it with Bill O'Brien, and now, listen, you look at where Penn State was, Jake, you threw out some of those numbers, but you finished last in the Big Ten in scoring offense, in rushing offense, in total offense. That's 14 of 14 teams, and they were equally bad or just about as bad last year in those same areas. With some of the talent that they have, clearly somebody's going to have to pay the price. And I think we got the vibe, Neil. I don't know about you and Jake as well. Mike, you're not at the press conferences, but he was given some opportunities during the year, Franklin was, to really give a vote of support.
Yeah.
And he never really did. And so I guess if there's a surprise, it may be in the timing that it was that quick, but I don't think, I'm not surprised at all that it happened.
Yeah, when Bill O'Brien was here and you had people criticizing John Butler, the defensive coordinator, he came out and said, listen, John Butler's a good coach. Like you say, Franklin asked numerous times about evaluating the staff in a lot of different ways and never quite came to bat for the guy.
I think James Franklin under some pressure now because of his record and not beating any of the top class of teams that they've been playing. So I think the pressure's on him. I think he felt compelled to do something, and I think that was his way out. But, do they replace an offensive coordinator, or should he be the offensive coordinator? I was looking in a write-up, like Michigan State has 9 coaches, and they got 2 co-offensive coordinators. Penn State has 10 coaches right now. So you go out to find another offensive coordinator and pay $1 million or $1.5 million or whatever to get a coordinator. Is that part of Franklin's job? Be a co-offensive, name a Rick Rainey or somebody like that.
Ronnie, I don't know that, he's done that, and he may have to do it for the bowl game, or it could be Herb Hand. I think clearly they're going to need an offensive coordinator. And you can't really make a case that like I agree, it's not really a surprise. It is unusual. We never saw this, and I thought maybe they would wait a year and until they got a quarterback that maybe better fit their system in there. Because I mean, this guy was part of wins over Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. Really helped get James Franklin this job. It's had to be really hard for him to do.
Yeah, all coaching staffs have the same number of guys. Nobody has 10 and nobody has 9. It's all 9. I just wanted to be clear on that. But from James Franklin's perspective, I think what we've seen of him as a head coach is he is not necessarily that play calling guy like a Bill O'Brien was. I think he's more his comfort zone is kind of being the overseer. I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong. There are coaches who do it very well both ways, but he to me strikes me as somebody who's going to need a coordinator on both sides of the ball so he can be more of the overseer of everything that's going on.
And he's pretty much said that himself
Yeah.
too. Even when he was talking about getting more involved in the offense, and we were all trying to clarify as to what that meant, he basically said that he's not going to be the offensive coordinator. So moving forward, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when things are acted on, what happens with the bowl game, but that's going to be a timeline that is to be seen.
One of the criticisms that I have of Donovan is not so much the play calling, even though they weren't very creative for sure in the red zone, especially when you saw what Connor Cook would be doing with faking, but some of that speaks to the offensive line was their organization. They'd get up, they'd have to burn too many timeouts, they'd get up after a big play, the clock would be running. Yesterday they had a number of illegal formations, and I think those are coordinator issues. But to your point, Mike, about him James feeling pressure, clearly he brought, this was the wrong choice. He's now had to move on. So, I mean, the pressure will be turned up on James effective next year.
But it's ironic because they had their best outing. They had 418 yards against Michigan State. A team in Ohio State only had like 132 yards against. So they actually played a lot better. So Franklin must have been thinking about this for some time to announce it.
How many points did they score, though? I mean, that's what it boils down to. If you look at the ranked teams they played, they averaged just over 14 points per game against ranked teams this year. And you're not going to win those games because, number one, you're going to have to score more than that. You're not going to hold them below 14. We know that. So you could talk about 400 yards, and I agree. There were a lot of good things in that game, but ultimately when it only results in 16 points, not enough.
Yeah. I mean, whether we'll probably find out in the coming days and weeks, maybe, whether Donovan knew this was his last game. I think it's pretty clear when they get back that he either met with him last night or first thing this morning. So, to your point, Mike, I think that they've known this is coming.
How wide is the gap? You talk about the fact that this Michigan State loss capped a 3-game skid to all ranked teams inside the Big Ten. They didn't play particularly well against Ohio State either. How much is that gap between those top teams in the conference and where Penn State is right now?
Well, I think Penn State is coming back. I mean, Franklin has done a good job recruiting, at least looking forward, and they have a lot of good young people on that squad. So are they going to close the gap? They didn't close it this year, obviously, but I think going forward, give them at least a couple more years. And that's the reason it kind of surprised me at the timing with Donovan, because I think Franklin, they're going to give him a couple more years to make it, to see how well they do and progress. So, I mean, he has a contract, and I think being with Donovan for, like Neil said, for 5 years, I think they were together at Maryland, at Vanderbilt, and now at Penn State for a couple of years. He really is probably a good friend and a cohort.
I don't know if they're coming back, Mike. I think that, he's got to look at after 2 years and think, is this bigger than he anticipated? This type of challenge, and we'll get to some of the other things. But I just, to me right now, they're closer to Maryland and Temple and the lower tier of the Big Ten than they are the upper tier.
I think there were signs in all of those games, though, that you can see where there are areas. To me, it boils down to the offensive line. I think if they had even a passable offensive line, these games would have been much closer. Would they have won them all? Of course not. I mean, I'm not trying to say that. But they really, as I look at their whole unit, if they could ever get that offensive line going, big if they could ever get that going, I think they could be right there.
On Saturday, that offensive line, I mean, if you look at it, they moved the ball, and the interception and the fumble recovery of the kid that ran it back, I mean, 2 crucial errors. That wasn't a fault of the offensive line. And they did move the ball. I mean, that's the first time all year. I know we've been very critical of the offensive line, but to their credit, they played decently on Saturday against Michigan State.
Well, yeah, and there really have been a whole bunch of challenges. We'll get to more of them as the NitWits continues. When we come back, with the regular season over, the clock is now ticking fast on some other decisions at Penn State. Should they stay or should they go? Our takes on the choice between college and the pros for Christian Hackenberg, and some other top Lions when we return.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Reed and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need.
Now back to the NitWits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Well, there's a big choice looming now for Christian Hackenberg. The Nittany Lions quarterback could, of course, jump to the NFL after this year. Hack still says he has not thought about the big decision after the Michigan State loss. Are we buying this, that he hasn't thought about it at all?
Yeah. No. Great leader, warrior. This kid, I think, has left it all out there. But I think clearly he's gone. He's been very programmed in his answers all year long. We're just trying to get better, working on next week. I think the time is right for him.
Maybe they can name Hack offensive coordinator.
Check with me. He'll call the plays. He might have to.
In all seriousness, you wonder how much better. I guess the whole coordinator thing might make a little bit of a difference. I don't know. I kind of doubt it. I agree with you, Neil, that I think the writing's kind of been on the wall. How much better can this kid get at this point? And would he be better served to get into a pro system and try to develop there as opposed to another year? I mean, how much better is this offensive line going to be next year? I just don't know how much better it's going to be. So I think all signs point to it, and I think we've mentioned this before. I mean, the kid's been great for the program.
Yeah.
Really helped them through some of the more difficult times. Probably is time for him to move on. And I'll wish him well. I'll become a fan wherever he goes.
Yeah.
He had a really good game on Saturday, although some of those short passes he still has an issue with. I mean, lobbing the ball over somebody or the screen pass, the interception down by the goal line. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like Mark says, maybe if they get a new offensive coordinator, maybe we'll think about it. Maybe that's part of it.
I doubt it. I think the wheels have already been in motion with him, and he's probably not going to be the only one who leaves. Austin Johnson. James acknowledged after the game that more than Hack, he's going to be meeting with some of these kids on what is best for them and best for Penn State.
Yeah, I think Austin Johnson's the only other guy though who would come into play with.
Well, at least with declaration for the NFL.
Right.
Well, they have the two seniors with Mangiero, and then with the defense.
On the defensive line,
Saddle,
yeah.
Some of these guys are going to graduate.
Right, yeah, they're obviously
so
going to
they're the two seniors.
And Nassib.
Then you got Nassib and Johnson.
And obviously
we're talking about guys that are going to forego one more year of eligibility.
So there's two of them you're saying.
Well, that would be probably attractive to the NFL.
Do you think Austin Johnson, I mean, he could legitimately be the top Penn State player drafted at this point, it seems like, if he would decide to go?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the kid will do his due diligence, get his evaluation. He's been up and down this year. I mean, he kind of disappeared in a couple of games. He looked all world in a couple other games. I think he is going to be, out of this group, I think he's going to be the best pro player of the defensive guys. I think they're all going to play, but the Nassibs and the Zettels. But I think this guy has a chance to be a really good player. And again, how much more is he going to accomplish here than he's already accomplished? Is his draft stock going to get better with another year in the program? I just don't know that it is.
I guess the follow-up question to all this, and Christian, I get the whole saying you haven't thought about it is a way to deal with the distraction. Is it possible that this does ramp up and become, just a big distraction between now and the bowl game, not only for Christian, but for Austin and maybe whoever else?
They've been dealing with this for 100 years. Every player that's been in this position. Do you think Larry Johnson gave a great effort in the Citrus Bowl in 2002? Seriously. It's been on the minds of a lot of these kids, and I don't blame them. I mean, they're looking to go to the league when the time comes.
Yeah.
It's one more game. Hackenberg can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and he's been able to see it for a few games. I don't see it
And
as
I think
a
he's handled it
distraction.
really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he will continue to do that by deflecting questions as much as we may not like that. I mean, that's clearly what he was doing after the game the other day, that he was just basically deflecting. If he's going to sit here and tell me he hasn't even thought about it, I mean, I respect what he's saying, but I don't believe it.
But has it changed because of his place in line to get drafted? I mean, Is he going to be a first round, a second round, a third round?
How much higher is he going to be if he comes back next year?
I don't
Mike, is the
know.
question.
I don't know
right.
that.
He might not be physically able.
Right.
After next
He's probably
year.
fortunate he's made it this far. Seriously.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, 44 sacks last year, on pace for more than 50 at this point. If that trend would continue, you're talking, another.
He wants to walk away while he still can.
Literally, I guess. All right. Well, much more to come here on the Nitwits. We are looking toward bowl season as Penn State hobbles its way to the postseason. Is James Franklin losing some support inside Nittany Nation? How this and some other challenges could impact that bowl preparation when we return.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life.
Now back to the Nitwits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Well, when you end the regular season on a 3-game losing streak, the critics start to come out in full force. A big name for Penn State is among them. Let's take a look at what national champion QB Todd Blackledge is saying. This is his Twitter post from Saturday night. He says, "What I just witnessed by James Franklin-led Penn State team was downright embarrassing. Come on, man." Blackledge, he's not the only former player to be critical. And there you see the language, bringing Franklin into it. Is this part of the challenge that this staff, that this program faces as they're trying to build back up?
That's the part of the challenge that everybody faces now. I mean, somebody watches a game and they get angry and they take to Twitter and immediately, you would have never seen this in the past. The thing that I found surprising about this, and I respect Todd Blackledge, I think he's terrific at what he does, but why do you pick this? I mean, there have been some embarrassing games and things that have happened with Penn State. I don't get why you pick this to sink your teeth into, and I also thought it was kind of surprising that he took it down. I mean, so once that goes down, you wonder what went on there and if he just got a little wrapped up in the emotion of the game. But listen, in terms of difficulties, some people came out after the Temple game and had some tough things to say. That's the way it is anymore. Everybody has a form, and they're going to take to Twitter. They're angry, and they let me know.
It's one thing when Donovan Smith gets loose after the Temple game, but this was really surprising to me because this has been one of their highest profile athletes, and I think it shows you the challenge that James Franklin has with a lot of the loyalties that have been spread around with the former players. And Blackledge is one of the most measured guys that they've ever had. So he clearly knew what he was doing when he did this, and even including Franklin's name. I was a little disappointed in that.
If you look at it, I mean, everybody watches that game is disappointed and frustrated. I mean, your reaction, I'm getting texts from my brother-in-law the whole game about, things that are going on. But in fairness to Franklin, I mean, guys have made the mistakes on the field, like, not getting the kickoff, the fumble by Carter, the interception thrown by Blackledge. Are there really Franklin's issues at the coaching? Or, I mean, you give him another shot. I mean, it wasn't his fault. Maybe he's not paying attention to details enough. I mean, you might criticize his coaching a little bit, but I don't know they can throw all the blame on Franklin for this. I mean, and there's a lot of people out against Franklin right now, but I mean, he's done a good job in other areas, and I think you have to give him a shot.
Does it feel like this is snowballing now, to where the Temple game you started to see some people, and now it's gaining momentum?
Again, I just think it's kind of the nature of the beast, But I was surprised again with Blackledge. They get hammered at Ohio State a couple years ago. Did he come out and tweet then about it? I mean, they get hammered at Temple. Did he come out and tweet about that? I just don't get it. But I seriously, I just think it's kind of everybody can tweet stuff. And then again, he takes it down. What is that telling you? Are you standing behind your word or not? Because I think, listen, I'm guessing what got him riled up is when the offensive lineman, they put him at tailback and he scored a touchdown. I'm sure that frustrated a lot of people. But I don't know that that's some sign that there's some wave of anti-Franklin sentiment among all former players.
Well, Mike, I think your point about snowballing, it's probably true. I think that the majority of the fan base right now are kind of disillusioned with where things are. And, I don't know whether it's going to take longer and people have to understand or whatnot, or whether Franklin has some mending with former players and relationships. They said, you never want to follow the legend. Well, when a legend stays as long as Joe did, it's more, it takes a long time to, I think, really smooth out a
He didn't follow the legend, though.
He didn't follow the legend, but the legend's shadow still exists.
And I think Franklin's heart's with Penn State. He's really out selling the program, and I think you still have to give him a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, obviously a good performance in the bowl
Follow
game.
the legend of Joe or O'Brien, what he's doing.
There you go.
Both.
Well, I guess, doing well in the bowl game could fix a lot of things. When we come back, we'll look into the crystal ball, our predictions, not how Penn State will do, but where they'll go when we come back.
The NitWits are brought to you by EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
Now back to the NitWits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Usually we're picking the game winners. Let's pick the bowl winners. Where's Penn State going to go? Florida, California, somewhere in between?
Yeah, my guess is the Gator Bowl. You look at the way things break down, they're probably going to get 3 teams in the upper tier bowls, 1 in the playoff, 2 in the New Year's Day games. And then the way things kind of break down, it looks like that, would be the most viable. It would be there or Nashville. And I get the sense that they're not going to end up in Nashville. I just hope Todd Blackley just calling whatever game they get.
I think the Gator Bowl will be great. Penn State has a long history with the Gator Bowl. Haven't been there since '76. In the early '60s with Galen Hall, they were there a couple times. Mike, what about you? You have a history with the Gator Bowl. You didn't want to go.
I was on that team that voted not to go to the Gator Bowl, and they weren't too happy. I still remember going to Nittany Lion for dinner and coming out, and all the coaches with big smiles on their faces. Then they found out the team voted not to go to the Gator Bowl.
You could redeem yourself now by voting to go.
I'm not even telling you which way I voted on it.
Penn State fans they'd love to go there now, so
Mike,
maybe you won't be part of the voting this year.
Mike, we'll get you a Nitwit press credential, and you can finally make your trip.
I want to go. At least it's warm in Jacksonville, right? So, and it's a short trip, so better than going to California.
I think that would be good exposure, and they get a lot of the people from Florida, and it just would be a win-win for them. Play a good opponent, maybe Georgia.
Yeah, it would seem to make a lot of sense.
We'll, of course, have a Nitwits episode leading up to that bowl to preview it. We will make our picks there.
Who's the Nitwit of the Week?
Adjust the Nitwit of the Week standing, or the Nitwit of the Year standings.
Yeah.
Oh, look who it is. Jacob getting his second
one?
ball. The guest still only has one. It was not Mike, though.
I just wanted to hear it often enough to make these good choices. I mean,
all right.
I'll let you guys make better choices than me. Can you imagine that?
All right. Well, we'll see you before the bowl here on the Nitwits.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Reed and Salaney, Doctors Reed and Salaney provide orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona, just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.